As I'm sure you're aware, there's a massive $3,000 Marvel Snap tournament ongoing right now. The finals are going to be broadcast this weekend, and the top 6 consist of Jeff Hoogland, Freddybabes, Cozy, Dera, Casanova, and myself. However, due to the patch, we've been asked to change our deck list halfway through the tournament, which is obviously not typical. And as a result, I have got a bunch of really interesting decks to share with you that are all based on the new patch. There was some rules of deck building. You can't have more than 4 cards overlapping between your winner's bracket deck and your loser's bracket deck. Jeff is in the grand finals. He's the only person who gets to bring 2 decks to this part of the tournament. But our winner's bracket deck, for example, my Spider-Woman Clog deck, which I lost with, I can't have more than 4 cards overlapping with that in my current deck. Didn't impact me too much at all, but it definitely has impacted people like Dera. Dera had Shuri in the winner's bracket and Thanos in the loser's bracket before. Of course, Thanos was the much better deck now, but that's kind of reversed with the changes. So Dera's really caught the short end of the straw, where he played the second best deck at first, and now he's not able to play the best deck, arguably, which is Shuri. Now, Casanova is in the loser's final. So the way the tournament's going to work is Freddybabes versus Cozy, Dera versus myself. The winner of those 2 games plays each other. The winner of that plays Casanova, and then the winner of that plays Jeff. But they have to beat Jeff with both of his decks because he's coming from the winner's bracket. Casanova then, in 3rd place guaranteed, could get 2nd or 1st, has brought a Shuri deck. And I have to say, I don't think it's a very good one. I don't like the list. The reason I don't like the list, there's a couple reasons. He's gone for a Sauron build, which I'm just not a believer in. Sauron has one of the highest win rates as a card in general, but it is, of course, it's now a Series 4 card. It was previously a Series 5 card, so not many people play it. The only decks it is played in is Shuri decks, but I think it's quite clear and obvious that the usual version with Cosmo, for example, is going to be a better way of playing this rather than Sauron, particularly with the change to Red Skull. Sauron actually got indirectly nerfed because you don't really care that much about Red Skull's ongoing ability anymore. The other thing I don't like about this deck is it's really weak to Storm. There's no Captain Marvel or Vision. If you guys would like to see what I believe to be a better Shuri deck, I did post a meta report video yesterday, which you can check out, where I have what I believe to be a better version of Shuri. So it's brought Shuri, obviously still a really strong deck. I don't think it's a very good build though, and there's a lot of Storms around, and I think this is very weak to Storm. You just imagine someone plays Storm against you when you're playing this Shuri deck. You want to play your Shuri on turn 4, and then you just can't get any points into the Storm lane. So if you had Vision or Captain Marvel, that would not be an issue for you. Up next we have Cozy, and I love Cozy's deck. It's really exciting. Cozy has gone for a Thanos. Controversial, but not the typical Thanos we're used to. It's a Silver Surfer deck, and I'm actually a big believer in Silver Surfer. In fact, I'm going to be sharing with you my Silver Surfer deck, which I almost brought. I changed with literally 1 minute to go onto a different deck. But Cozy's gone for Thanos in there, which is a really interesting way of doing things. He's also got Professor X comboing with Daredevil. He has Goose, which is a fantastic card at dealing with potentially Shuri decks as well. Quite a lot of decks do struggle against Goose, but of course She-Hulk, Death can sneak in there. They're things to be quite scared of. But with Goose as well, and with the Thanos Space Stone, you can move stuff in there. He's also excitingly playing the Negasonic Teenage Warhead, which is of course a 3-cost card for some synergy with Silver Surfer. This is a brand new card. I think one thing that Cozy might struggle with is the consistency of the deck, with the fact that he's got a 17-card deck. He might not have that Storm access when he wants, but I really like the idea of this, because a lot of the time with the Silver Surfer decks, you don't end up playing any 1-cost cards. Well, suddenly with Thanos, you get a whole bunch of 1-cost cards while not sacrificing anything else. So on turn 4, you can play a 3-drop and a 1-drop. So it's a really, really interesting idea. I honestly love it, and I'm excited to see how it pans out. I personally think the Silver Surfer deck that I built is going to be more consistent, but I haven't played this deck. I think this is an awesome deck. Big up to Cozy. What a guy. Moving on, we've got Dera. Dera wanted to play Shuri, no doubt about it. I knew he wanted to play Shuri. I spoke to him about it. He wanted to play Shuri. It's probably the best deck in the game right now, but he couldn't because it was his winner's bracket deck from before when it wasn't the best deck. So he's definitely drawn the short end of the stick. He sent me a few lists that he was considering going for. This is the one he settled on. Of course, Dera is my opponent. He has got Master Mold in there, which is really exciting. Master Mold, a new Series 5 card as well, adding 2 copies of a Sentinel to your opponent's hand. That's going to synergize nicely with Ronan. He has Mystique in there. The Sarah is interesting as well because on turn number 6, he can go Ronan plus Mystique, for example, or he can play like Killmonger Doctor Doom. He's got some pretty exciting things. Doctor Doom, going to be a nice way of getting stats into Storm. I think Storm has proven to be a very, very popular card, which does make a lot of sense with the change to Space Stone. Before, Space Stone was just completely removing Storm from the meta, but it's working quite differently now. It's quite an exciting deck. I'm surprised that Dera didn't go for Thanos. I was pretty convinced he was going to bring some kind of Thanos deck. I have no idea how good this is. I don't have Master Mold, but I'm excited to see it in action. Up next, we have Freddy's deck. Freddy has taken some inspiration from Jeff Hoogland. Freddy really struggles with the collection compared to other players. He doesn't have Thanos. I don't believe he has Galactus. He doesn't even have Darkhawk, so he couldn't put Darkhawk in this list. So it's Jeff Hoogland's bounce deck with a twist, and I think that twist is instead of Darkhawk, which he doesn't own, he's put Valkyrie in there. Valkyrie going to be potentially dealing with Casanova's Shuri list, particularly with the lack of Cosmo, because Armor's not protecting you from Valkyrie. So I'm quite excited to see how this one gets on. We know how good the bounce deck performed in the previous patch. Jeff got to the grand finals with a bounce deck, so this should be a really great deck, and Freddy is a fantastic player. So going to be exciting to see Freddy's bounce deck up against Cozy's Silver Surfer deck. So we really are seeing quite a lot of variety. Only the one Shuri deck so far. Okay, we have Jeff up next. 2 decks for Jeff because, again, he came from the winner's bracket. I respect a lot that he's stuck with his original deck, which got him to the winner's bracket for his winner's bracket deck. I think that makes a lot of sense. And also, just in terms of like the competitive integrity, kind of makes a lot of sense because Jeff, you could argue, could have some kind of advantage with the fact that he could bring like 2 massive counter decks, like one deck to just try and counter Thanos and one deck which could just try and counter Shuri. Because it's not... the position he's in, he only needs to beat 1 deck, and he has 2 attempts to do it. So he's in a unique position. I really respect the fact that he's brought his same bounce deck, which got him to the winner's final. It is an amazing deck. It's the deck that knocked me into the loser's bracket, although it was very close. It came down to a 50-50, which I'm still upset about. But, you know, what can you do? But it's an amazing deck. It's definitely my favourite deck of the tournament. And his second deck is quite an interesting one. He's also got Storm and Negasonic Teenage Warhead in there. There's a Shang-Chi, there's a Doctor Doom, there's a She-Hulk with Wave and a Goose. This is a pretty interesting deck. Goose and Storm are just 2 cards that I love in general. He's got the Iceman and Scorpion, which are just really good value cards. Lizard as well, a very solid card, although without Killmonger, maybe the Lizard is going to be getting exposed too easily. Lizard very powerful in Storm and, particularly Storm lanes, but also pretty good in Goose. And he's going to be looking for that JJ on turn 4 to win the Storm lane. He's also got Wave on turn 5, which then allows him to play She-Hulk and another card on turn number 6. And of course, that is quite immune to Aero now, with the fact that Aero is only pulling the last card played. It can't pull both of those. So Wave into She-Hulk. Definitely a really nice combo now. I think Wave is going to be one of those cards which has gone from being obviously a very good card, but like a top meta card with the change to Aero. Okay, finally, last but certainly not least, the moment none of you have been waiting for. We've got my deck. So first and foremost, I'm going to show you the deck which I almost brought. I had it locked in. We only had 24 hours for these, remember? And it is a Silver Surfer deck. I think this deck is absolutely glorious. I think it can beat Shuri if they don't have Vision or Captain Marvel. That's what I was most scared of and why I didn't bring it. Also, there's a lot of Doctor Dooms going around, so I think I made a good decision not to bring it. But I think Silver Surfer is back. Let me explain why. Aero was the best card in the meta for the last few months, by far. And this deck sucks with Aero. There's just no clean opportunity to play Aero. Aero being a turn 6 card, you wanted to combo her with a 1-drop. On turn 6 with this deck, you want to be playing 2 3-cost cards. Or what you would often see with Silver Surfer decks back in the day was with Sarah. I know a lot of you are going to be wondering why that wouldn't be in there. I've not got Sarah and I have Chavez instead. The idea is on turn 5, rather than playing Sarah and then playing 3 3-drops on turn 6, you play a 2 and a 3-drop on 5 and then 2 3-drops on 6. Because cards like Goose and Cloak are amazing cards to play on turn number 5. Goose Really good information. If you can play it on turn 5, it's a lot better than on turn 2 because you kind of know where your opponent's playing, particularly with Daredevil. You can really make things awkward for them and almost clog them with the Goose play. And Cloak has a lot of amazing synergy with Kingpin. Cloak, just a nice card you can play on turn 2 for value for 4 points. It's one of the best cards in that sense at 2 cost, Lizard being a competitor. But then you can also do some amazing things with Kingpin. You can play Cloak, and then if you have initiative, you can play your Kingpin into the Cloak claim, catching your opponent off guard, and because you have initiative, your Cloak will actually, your Kingpin, I do believe, will kill any cards your opponent played in there. That's what I'm told. I didn't actually test it, and I almost submitted it. Here's what I submitted. It's a pile. But, it's the one I wanted to bring. It is a pile. And it is the Electro Nimrod. There's a Shuri, all right? There is a Shuri, but it's not a Shuri deck, right? There's literally one overlapping card between this and a typical Shuri deck, and that is Shuri. Maybe you could argue Zola as well. What is this deck all about? Well, I've got Goose in there, is the most flexible card. On ladder, I play Kang in this slot. I also haven't been playing Odin on ladder. I've been playing Sunspot. Sunspot I decided to kick because I was expecting quite a lot of Killmongers. A lot of the time with this deck, you just have so many points that I just didn't think it mattered. And a lot of the time, Sunspot's only playing for 3 points. You play Electro or Storm on turn 3, and then you don't really do anything else. Obviously, if you play the Electro, your Sunspot might go up to like 4 or 5 points. But Goose on turn 2 does have a lot of potential to shut down your opponent from a certain location. You can also play Goose and Storm in the same lane, perhaps. Electro is an option on turn 3, or Storm is an option on turn 3. Storm is very good with Nimrod, with Doctor Doom, with Zola. But then if you don't hit Storm, Electro gives you a different way of playing the game, because you can play, for example, on turn 5 Nimrod, on turn 6 Zola, on turn 7 Destroyer. Or you can do Nimrod on 6, Nimrod on 5, Zola on 6, and then Odin the Zola is a thing that we can try with this one. It's really wacky. There's all sorts going on here. So it's a deck I'm very excited for. You've obviously got Wong, Black Panther, and Zola combo as well. And the reason I decided not to bring Kang in an open deck list is because on ladder you have no idea what kind of cards your opponent might have and what cards you might have to play around. You don't know if they have Cosmo, Aero, Shang-Chi. So you play the Kang to see what they have and then kind of adjust accordingly. However, in an open deck list, that information you have already. Of course, you don't know what's in their hand, but Kang doesn't even necessarily tell you what's in their hand because they can still switch up their play. And I decided actually having that Odin and that Goose. Goose is just a card to play before turn 3. Otherwise, you're just skipping turn 1 and turn 2 every time. And Odin as a way of reinforcing the Electro lines. Often you do want to play Storm, and I would always pick Storm over Electro, but with the Odin in there, I think both are a real threat, which means I have a lot of flexibility in how I can play. Now, if we look at the rest of the decks, obviously now I'm going to be talking with bias because I'm not talking about my deck. There's not many Shang-Chis. Dera has a Shang-Chi. He has no Cosmo, which is, I think, very important for me. He has a Doom, which can sneak into the Storm lane. Shang-Chi's obviously the biggest threat, undoubtedly. However, I have Goose and Storm. So if I have initiative with Storm and Goose, and then he can't Shang-Chi me, if I Zola my stuff, my Panther mid. If I have initiative, cool. So I think this looks like a very good matchup for me. In fact, Dera told me he thinks that my deck is his worst matchup. So that's a good start. Whether I actually beat him or not remains to be seen. Then we've got Cozy and Freddy. Cozy's deck doesn't play Shang-Chi. It has a Storm, which suits me. It has Professor X, which is a little bit scary, but we do both have Daredevil. Goose also could honestly really screw me up as well. Even though I play Goose in my own deck, Goose can screw me up a lot. That's why Goose is a risky card to include in my own list. It's like a high risk, high reward card for certain matchups. I might not even play it sometimes, right? So Cozy's deck definitely spooks me a little bit with the Professor X. The Negasonic Teenage Warhead as well. Imagine this kills like my Black Panther or something like that, or my Destroyer. This deck actually scares me quite a bit. Then we have Freddy. Obviously, Freddy playing against Cozy. He has Valkyrie, which can definitely be an issue for me. However, he doesn't really have a good way of contesting the Storm lane, so that might be an issue for him. Goose is definitely not going to be good against Freddy either. So Freddy, I think I like my chances against as well, although he does have Valk. So Cozy, no Shang, but he has Negasonic and Professor X. Dera does have Shang. Freddy has Valk. Then the Casanova deck is a weird one because Shuri's very powerful, right? I think that I probably have the advantage here with the fact that he can't really contest Storm. Goose, again, a little bit dodgy in this one because of the She-Hulk. He can go Shuri into She-Hulk, so that's something I need to be careful of. But yeah, I think Storm is going to be the money card against Casanova with the lack of Vision and Marvel, which I touched on earlier. And then finally, if I make it all the way to the finals, Jeff's decks. Well, this one looks like a pretty comfortable one for me, I would wager, simply because he doesn't have a way of disrupting my Black Panther, for example, at all. I could go Wong, Panther, Zola, and that's just a lot of points. So this one looks like a pretty good matchup for me. His second one, however, does have a Shang-Chi. It does have Negasonic Teenage Warhead. It has a Doctor Doom, a Storm of his own. So I think this second one might be the one where I could come unstuck if I do make it all the way to the grand finals. I'm feeling pretty good about my chances. I went for the ridiculously bold deck choice over the Silver Surfer. I'm pretty happy I've gone for it. It's the one that my heart was on. Let's hope I can win the whole thing. I got super unlucky to lose the 50-50 to Jeff in an unfavored matchup, which knocked me down into the losers. It's a 50-50, you know. It is what it is. So I'm really hoping I can make a comeback and show people I'm pretty good at the video game. Also against Dera, who knocked me out of the New York City tournament in the losers bracket. In fact, he knocked me out playing Shuri, and I had a very similar list to this. He had Vision, and I just never got the Storm and Kingpin, and that experience was probably the reason I decided not to go for this one. It already lost me one tournament. As much as I love this deck, there's going to be deck guides coming on a lot of these. Make sure you like and subscribe to the video. Hope you enjoyed it, and make sure you check out 983 Media, where the games will be broadcast this coming weekend. Big love to all the creators for producing some absolute juicer decks. Much respect, and I'm really excited for it. Cool. Bye.